Return on Investment by Kevin Levija. Benjamin Franklin said, "An investment in knowledge pays the best returns." In an effort to reduce costs and increase the standardization across the Naval Inspector General, in 2019 the Naval Inspector General Academy was created. While this process of outfitting the Academy with furniture, televisions, things of that nature, the instructors also considered every aspect of the institution to include instructional design, implementation of technology, curriculum delivery, as well as the best return on these expenditures. There are many ways we can capture the benefits of our efforts. Some of our courses outlined here are our basic hotline course, military whistleblower, our practical investigator course for the advanced section. We're currently working on inspections, the Knights course, and Navy IG 101 training. But although our main focus is on course development, this is not the only thing that we need to concentrate on, since we are restricted to travel and must consider these courses online. So we must redevelop these courses as they're just basically PowerPoint presentations and turn them onto some type of online learning. We must also consider the manner in which we assess what works so we can continue to improve these programs. So you might have heard of returning on investment as applied to business. Basically, for every dollar invested, the question is, what is the quantifiable amount in dollars that is returned after the term of the investment? But when it comes to education, applying this definition, what do we use to identify the quantifiable amount while converting dollars to skills, mastery, and knowledge? Well, this project is going to walk you through some of the tools that we can use. So for the discussion, we'll not be considering the dollar-to-dollar return with respect to the cost-benefit analysis for the IG Academy, which has already been done and approved. We want to look at the evaluation assessments that focus on the instructional design implemented. If we're implementing a certain way to do a course, we want to make sure, test it, evaluate it, and make sure it's going to give us that return on investment. And there's a few tools that we can use. Smith and Knapp identify an equation. So basically it's a return of investment equation, but it's a return of instructional investment model. So ROII, return of instructional investment, is equal to, starting with the percentage of incremental benefit, or the difference in the results between the control and experimental group. So in this case, we would use one control group with a PowerPoint that we might have used, and maybe be experimenting with another program and kind of get the percent difference in the results between the two. This is multiplied by the stakeholders impacted. So the target school stakeholder group is impacted by the program, or per year, we can use that percentage. How many people will be affecting? We can just throw in a $10,000 amount for an average investment, just to, it's scalable basically, but it provides a scale for the return calculation. When you multiply all that, you divide by the program investment, how much we actually spent. It's based on the assumed life cycle of 4 years for the program. We can get a return of instructional investment model. In the next few slides, I'll provide a quick preview of some other models that I identify, or that will identify how well a program increases efficiency, if at all. Sometimes that model will identify that the efficiency goes down. So there's no one-size-fits-all assessment. In fact, there are several attributes to these assessments that we could mix. Many of the assessments can be hybridized. We can customize and fit a specific program and try to get better intended results. I'm going to go over these slides rather briefly, but for a deeper analysis into the assessments, I recommend my paper on the Instructional Design Analysis Project, which is also listed in the reference section. The first one we'll look at is Stufflebeam's Context Input Process Product Model. It starts with the context, or you'll outline your goals, all centering around the core values of what you're teaching. You move on to the input section where you're developing your plans. You take the action, it moves on to the actual process of what program you're implementing, and then of course it gives you the results or the outcomes, and hopefully that product is what you had in mind. Rossi's 5-domain evaluation. You first do a needs assessment, you build the design, you implement that design, you get the impact, and then you mark the efficiency. Chen's theory-driven evaluation really focuses on the end results and tries to see exactly where you want to be, but there's two models. You have your action model. It gets a little complex here, but you're basically, it walks you through how all the pieces interact between the organization, the partnership, and the intervention, but also when it's implemented, the communications going back and forth, and what your end goal is with your target. Once you implement the program, there's a change model that talks about intervention, determination, and outcomes that provides feedback back to the action model so that you can make improvements. One of the older models that's still in use today is Kirkpatrick's model, where you get the reaction or the engagement of the students to see how much they're eager to learn on the subject, the actual learning itself, to see if there's a change in behavior, which will guarantee the end results. Brinkerhoff's success case method, focusing specifically on the success. You start with the focus and plan of the success case study, so you identify something that has been successful and you try to improve upon it. You can construct a visual impact model. You conduct a survey research study to identify the best and worst cases. Usually these are anonymous, but in this case we want to focus on the individual, so they would not be anonymous in this case. And then we want to go into a deeper dive into what works and what does not work. Maybe these might be phone interviews that could be up to 45 minutes long. And eventually you can document and communicate and basically tell the story of the findings. Patton's utilization focused evaluation. Brief list here of 9 steps. You conduct a readiness assessment. This is very assessment focused, by the way. You identify the primary intended users, conduct a situational analysis, identify the primary intended uses. You focus on the evaluation, design the evaluation, collect, analyze, and interpret the data received from those evaluations. You continually facilitate the evaluation's use and conduct a meta-evaluation. This really focuses on the utilization of these evaluations and discards anything that's not being used. So with respect to our coursework, we can ask the question of the programs that we experiment with to ensure better return on investment. OnlineLearning.com gives us these questions, and we've kind of customized them to fit into our program. So 1, how is the program relevant to inspections and investigations? This is a good question. Hey, what is the relevance? How is it going to help us out? If it's not relevant, then why are we using it? If we're hiring investigators with relatively no background experience and we're starting from scratch, why are we hiring them? Maybe we need to ask that question to human resources. For all the televisions and the smart boards and Wi-Fi that we get today, is that going to be obsolete tomorrow? So in the assessment that we use, can we get an accurate picture of what that return is going to look like? And last, are we going to create these things internally, or are we going to go and try to get another agency to build it for us? Would that be more cost efficient? That's definitely a question we need to ask. So in these days, we're experiencing some difficult times with respect to travel restrictions due to COVID-19 still. And what we thought was a surplus budget is now turning into a tight, restricted percentage of what we're used to having for our training operations. So we've always had to justify to the taxpayer how many dollars we spend, but we also should be good stewards with the budget that we have and use the tools necessary and apply them to our training programs. Malmed is mentioned here, where it talks about the necessity of identifying whether a program is worth the expense and worth the continued effort to conduct online training as well as in-person instruction once the travel restrictions are lifted. And that kind of points to, yes, we are being good stewards when we're considering that information. If you have any questions, please email me at kevinlevija@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions. And thank you for listening to this presentation.